The city of Daegu never slept. It was the kind of place that had been underestimated for so long it had stopped caring about the opinions of cities that didn't. Seoul got the glamour. Busan got the coastline. Daegu got the heat, brutal summers that cracked the pavements and winters that froze the tributaries solid. And in return it built something the other cities envied without admitting it. A bone-deep toughness, a refusal to perform. A city that worked because it had to and thrived because it chose to. Old alleyways ran beneath glass towers in Dongseongno. Neon signs cast pink and gold light across wet cobblestones every night of the year. The smell of doenjang jjigae drifted from rooftop restaurants while street vendors below grilled galbi in open air. Motorcycles weaved through luxury cars. Children ran between the legs of men in three-piece suits. Daegu was loud, beautiful, and merciless. A city that rewarded ambition and buried weakness without ceremony. Jun owned most of it. Not officially. His name appeared on no deed, no license, no municipal record. But every nightclub owner, every dockmaster, every port official, every judge who had ever taken a bribe, they all knew the name Shin Jun. They knew it the way you know the name of a river that floods. Not because you love it, but because you have learned to build your house with it in mind. He was 34 years old. He had taken over his father's empire at 22 when his father was found floating in the Gumho River with 3 bullets in his chest, and a look of genuine surprise frozen on his face. Jun had not been surprised at all. He had restructured the entire organization within 6 months, eliminated 4 rival families, and doubled their earnings within 2 years. He was not cruel for pleasure. He was precise, deliberate. He treated violence the way a surgeon treats a scalpel, only when necessary, and always with clean hands afterward. He had no interest in strangers. This was a known fact among his inner circle. Jun did not make friends. He made alliances. He did not fall in love. He made arrangements. Feelings, in his philosophy, were liabilities. You could not build an empire on feelings. You could only build it on discipline, fear, and the quiet promise that betrayal would be answered swiftly and without emotion. Which is why no one could explain what happened on the night of the 3rd of November, when Shin Jun stood in the rain on the corner of Dongseongno-gil, and could not stop staring at a woman he had never seen before. Her name was Yemi. He did not know that yet. He only knew what he saw. A woman in a yellow dress that had gone dark with rain, standing outside a pojangmaka that had already closed for the night, trying to cover her head with a paper bag that was slowly dissolving in her hands. She was laughing at herself. Not performatively, not the way people laughed when they wanted to be seen laughing. She was genuinely, privately amused at her own situation, shoulders shaking, teeth bright in the dark, completely unbothered by the fact that she was soaked through and utterly alone on a street that most people of sense had already abandoned. Jun had just come from a meeting. One of the Beck brothers had been skimming from the Susong warehouse, not enough to constitute a crisis, but enough to require correction. The correction had been made. He was walking back to his car because he had told his driver to wait 2 blocks away. A habit he kept to ensure he was never an easy target. He was not thinking about yellow dresses or women laughing in the rain, and yet he stopped walking. He stood there for 11 seconds, he counted them without meaning to, watching her. She gave up on the paper bag, let it collapse in her hands, and simply stood in the rain with her face tilted up slightly, as if she was accepting it. As if the sky had asked her something and she had decided to say yes. Then she turned and walked away, and Jun blinked and kept moving, and told himself it meant nothing. He saw her again 3 days later. She was at the Seomun night market, the oldest market in Daegu, where vendors had been selling since the Joseon era, and the alleyways smelled of scallion pancakes and warm sesame, and the particular sweetness of hotteok frying in oil. Jun was not supposed to be there. He had sent 2 of his men to collect a package from a contact near the textile stalls. But something had prompted him to come himself, an instinct he did not examine, and so he was standing near a tteokbokki cart when he recognized the laugh before he recognized the face. She was haggling with an elderly vendor over the price of a bolt of Nigerian Ankara fabric, imported, rare, the kind of material that turned up in Daegu only through specialized traders who dealt in West African textiles alongside Korean silk. The old vendor was firm. Yemi was creative. She offered a counterprice, then offered to return the following week and buy 2 bolts, then offered a compliment about the vendor's display that made him laugh and concede 2,001 off the original price. Yemi pumped her fist quietly when he turned to wrap the fabric. June almost smiled. He did not, but it was close. He asked one of his men who she was. His man, a sharp, careful person named Kwan, did not ask why. He simply found out. Her name was Adeyemi Okafor. Yemi, 28 years old. Nigerian-born, Tega-raised. She ran a small textile design studio in the Daisel Arts District, the creative quarter near Susong Lake, where artists and independent designers had built something genuine despite the city's appetite for everything around them. She had no criminal record, no affiliations, no connection to any of the families or organizations that operated in the city's underworld. She was, in every measurable sense, a civilian. June filed the information away and told himself again that it meant nothing. The night it happened, he was not watching her. He had no reason to be watching her. He did not watch civilians. He only found out because one of his men had been passing through the Daisel Arts District at 11:30 when he heard the sound, the specific, unmistakable sound of a beating in progress behind the shuttered stalls of the night market. He went to look because June's people were trained to investigate unusual sounds in their operating territories. What he found was 4 men from the Obina crew, a mid-tier gang that had migrated up from Busan and now operated out of Taegu's western freight yards, and a woman on the ground. Yemi. She had apparently witnessed something she was not supposed to witness. The wrong handoff in the wrong alley at the wrong time. The Obina crew did not traffic in mercy. They had beaten her methodically, the way people do when they want to send a message rather than commit a murder, badly enough to terrify, not badly enough to kill. They had left her there and walked away, and she had not moved. Kwan called June immediately. June arrived in 4 minutes. He stepped out of his car and walked to where she lay on the wet ground of the alley, and crouched down beside her. Her yellow dress, the same yellow dress he noticed from the first night, was torn. Her lip was split. There was blood at her temple and her breathing was shallow but present. Her eyes were open, glassy, trying to focus. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked up at Kwan and said, very quietly, 4 words. Who did this to you? Yemi's eyes found his face. She did not know him. She did not know what he was. She only saw a man in a dark coat kneeling in the rain beside her, and something in his voice, not soft, not gentle, but certain, the way the voice of someone is certain who has already decided what they are going to do, made her answer him. The Obina crew, she whispered. 4 men. Western freight yards. June nodded once. He looked at Kwan. Kwan looked back at him. No words were exchanged. None were needed. June carried Yemi to his car himself. The next morning, Taegu woke up afraid. It did not happen all at once. It happened the way fear always happens in a city, in fragments, in whispers, in the small wrong details that accumulate until even ordinary people can feel that something fundamental has shifted. The first thing people noticed was the absence. Deo Obina, head of the Obina crew, a man known for eating breakfast at the same Pojangmaka on Yungang Daro every single morning for the past 5 years, was not there. His usual table sat empty. His usual order was not placed. His driver, who always waited on the street outside, was gone. By noon it was not just Deo. 3 of his lieutenants had failed to appear at their usual posts. The manager of the Obina crew's front business, a freight logistics company at the Western Yards, arrived at work to find the office locked from the inside in a way that suggested the people inside had not chosen to leave. A mid-level enforcer named Rodamai, who had a habit of calling his mother every morning without exception, did not call. His mother, who had no idea what her son did for a living, reported this to a neighbor with the kind of specific, quiet alarm that a mother carries when the routine breaks. By 3 in the afternoon, the word was moving through the city's underground like electricity through water. The Obina crew had been touched. No one knew exactly by whom. No one needed to. In Taegu, there were exactly 2 forces capable of making a mid-tier gang disappear with this kind of precision and this kind of silence. One was the city's organized police task force, which was notoriously underfunded, famously reassigned to other priorities, and structurally incapable of moving this cleanly or this fast. The other was Shin Jun. The disappearances were not the only thing. 2 blocks from the Western freight yards, A warehouse the Obina crew had used for storage was found emptied. Not ransacked, emptied. Everything inside had been removed with a patience and thoroughness that suggested not rage but intention. Whatever the Obina crew had been protecting inside that warehouse was gone, and the message this sent to anyone watching was precise. This is not chaos. This is accounting. In the Daisel Arts District, shop owners who had been paying informal protection money to Obina-affiliated collectors found that no one came to collect. This should have been a relief. Instead, it terrified them more than anything else. The collectors not coming meant the collectors were not available to come. The collectors not being available meant something significant had happened to them overnight. Significant things did not happen to armed men without direction. Direction required power. Power in Daegu had a name. In the upper floors of the glass towers near Dongseongno, the city's business elite felt it differently. 2 of the 3 district council members who had been on the Obina crew's informal payroll received identical envelopes that morning. Inside each envelope was a single sheet of paper. On each sheet was a brief, typed message and a list. A very specific list of every financial transaction, every bribe, every favor exchanged between the council member and the Obina organization over the past 4 years. No demands. No deadlines. Just the list and beneath it 3 words. We are watching. By 5 in the afternoon, the panic was no longer underground. Civilians felt it as a texture change in the city. People walked faster. Conversations at markets were shorter. The 2 television stations that typically ignored organized crime as a matter of policy both ran brief, anxious segments about unconfirmed reports of disruptions near the Western Freight Quarter. 3 different journalists working independently began making calls to sources who did not pick up. A popular Daegu City forum, the city's unofficial nervous system, published a thread titled "Something is Happening" that contained almost no actual information but accumulated 40,000 views in 2 hours because the city recognized the feeling, even if it could not name the cause. Yemi did not know any of this yet. She was in a room she did not recognize, in a bed softer than anything she had ever slept in, with her ribs wrapped and her temple cleaned and dressed and a low ceiling light casting amber across walls that were austere and Korean in their bones, clean lines, dark cedarwood, a single shelf with no clutter, except for one thing. Above the dresser, mounted and framed behind glass, was a piece of fabric. Nigerian Ankara. Deep green and burnt orange, geometric, unmistakable. Her work. Her exact design from 2 years ago, one of the first pieces she had ever sold. When she opened her eyes, she thought she was dead. Then she thought she was dreaming. Then the pain arrived and confirmed she was neither. She sat up slowly. Every part of her protested. She catalogued the damage systematically. 3 bruised ribs, a split lip, a gash above her right temple, a bruised cheekbone, and the particular deep muscle soreness that comes from being hit by people who know how to hit. She had been cleaned, bandaged, dressed in what appeared to be a man's white shirt, far too large for her. There was water on the bedside table. She drank it all. The door opened. A woman entered, Korean, perhaps 50, with the controlled grace of someone who had been dealing with chaos for a long time and had decided to become its opposite. She introduced herself simply as Ms. Shin. She set down a tray of food without making a performance of it. Juk, warm and pale, a cup of omija tea, sliced Korean pear. She said that Yemi's injuries were not life-threatening. She said that Yemi could leave whenever she wished. She said that someone would like to speak with her when she was ready, and that there was absolutely no obligation. Who is the someone? Yemi asked. Ms. Shin, who was, in fact, Jun's aunt, and the only person on earth he listened to without argument, allowed a small, careful smile. His name is Jun, she said. He brought you here. Yemi thought about the man in the dark coat. The 4 words he had spoken in the alley. She thought about the certainty in his voice. I will speak with him, she said. He came in the evening. He was not what she had expected, though she could not have articulated what she had expected. He was tall and still, with the particular stillness of someone who had learned early that movement attracts attention and stillness keeps you safe. He was wearing a simple dark shirt and dark trousers. No jewelry except a single ring on his right hand, black stone, silver setting. He sat down across from her bed in the chair that had been placed there, and he folded his hands in his lap, and he looked at her the way no one had looked at her in a very long time. with full attention. Not desire, not pity. Attention. The kind that means I am here. I see you. I am not going anywhere. How are you feeling? He asked. Like I was beaten by 4 men, she said. Which I was. Something moved at the corner of his mouth. Almost a smile. You remembered what they were called, he said. The crew. Even in that state. I grew up in this city, she said. I know who operates where. I know what I saw at that handoff. She paused. Are you going to ask me what I saw? No, he said simply. Why not? Because it does not matter what you saw, he said. What matters is that they hurt you. That was enough. The room was quiet for a moment. That was enough for what? She asked, though some part of her already understood. He looked at her steadily. He did not answer. He did not need to. The question hung in the air between them, and the air itself held the answer. She could feel it in the particular quality of the silence, in the weight of the city outside the window, in the way a place can shift when something irreversible has been set into motion. She should have been afraid. She was not afraid. She did not fully understand why. Maybe it was the fact that he had come for her in the alley and not walked past. Maybe it was the steadiness of his voice. Maybe it was the way he sat across from her without wanting anything. No information, no gratitude, no performance of heroism. He had done what he had done, and now he was here, and he was simply genuinely present. She thought about the yellow dress. She thought about the night market and the ochre fabric now framed on the wall. She thought about what it meant that it was there. That is my fabric design, she said quietly, looking at the framed piece above the dresser. A pause. I know, he said. She looked back at him. You know my work. I know your laugh, he said, and something in his voice shifted. Still controlled, still careful, but the admission sitting there between them like a stone placed deliberately on a table, solid and undeniable. Yemi was quiet for a long moment. You saw me before, she said. Not a question. Twice, he said. She absorbed this. The rain. The market. The man she had not noticed. I never saw you, she said. I know, he said again. And something in the way he said it, not wounded, not reproachful, simply honest, told her more about who he was than anything else could have. On the 4th day, Yemi went home. June did not ask her to stay. He did not manufacture reasons. He arranged a car, confirmed the route was safe, and walked her to the door himself. At the threshold, he stopped. She turned to look at him. The people who hurt you, she said. What happened to them? His expression did not change. They are no longer a concern, he said. She had heard the city's whispers even from inside his house, fragments from Miss Shin, who had not tried to hide the news, only to deliver it without drama. She knew enough. She did not ask for more. And the people around them? She pressed. The ones who got swept up? I do not sweep up the innocent, he said. She studied his face. She believed him. She was not entirely sure she should believe him, and she was also not entirely sure that certainty was possible when it came to a man like this. He existed in a moral architecture she had not built and could not fully navigate. But she believed the specific thing he had said, that he did not sweep up the innocent. She believed it because of the way he said it, not as a reassurance offered to comfort her, but as a fact stated about himself, with the quiet confidence of someone who had held the line and knew it. Will it be safe? She asked. After this. In the district. Yes, he said. She nodded. She looked at the door, then back at him. Thank you, she said. For the alley. For all of it. He was quiet for a moment. Then, I would have done it regardless of who you were. She tilted her head slightly. Would you? A pause that lasted exactly as long as it needed to. No, he admitted. Not quite. She almost smiled. She turned and walked down the steps and got into the car. And June stood at the door and watched it until it turned the corner and disappeared. And then he went inside. The city found its equilibrium slowly, the way a surface of water finds itself after a stone has been dropped into it. The Obina crew, as an organization, ceased to exist within the week. Its remaining members scattered, some absorbed into other operations, some departed Tegu entirely, some simply and quietly got on with their lives in ways that had nothing to do with organized crime. The Western freight yards came under new management. The informal protection arrangements in the Daesel Arts District were dissolved. The 2 council members who had received the envelopes both voted, in an emergency session 3 days later, in favor of a motion to increase public safety investment in the arts quarter. Neither of them mentioned why. The city forum ran a follow-up thread. Whatever it was, it's over now. 50,000 views. The comments were a mixture of relief, dark humor, and the particular gallows wit of a city that has learned to process catastrophe without falling apart. No arrests were made. No bodies were found. This was the detail that unnerved people most. Not violence, but its absence. When criminal organizations collapsed noisily, the city could trace the outline and construct a narrative. This had been too clean, too deliberate. It left no story to tell, only a fact. Something powerful had decided that something else should end, and it had ended. Yemi reopened her studio on a Tuesday. She swept the floors, rehung the fabric samples, made herself a cup of tea and stood at the window looking out at the Daesel quarter. The same crooked streets, the same painted walls, the same smell of autumn and street food and cedarwood that she had grown up breathing. It looked the same. It felt different. She could not fully articulate the difference. Perhaps it was simply that she had moved through something and come out the other side, and the other side always looks like the same world and is somehow not. Her first client arrived at 10. Her second at noon. By the afternoon she was working again, which was where she was always most herself, bent over a design table with fabric swatches spread around her, making something that had not existed before she made it. At 4:30 a delivery arrived. A flat rectangular package, wrapped in plain brown paper. No return address. Inside, a bolt of Nigerian geli silk, imported extraordinary, a deep indigo woven through with thin threads of gold that caught the light and shifted it like water. It was the kind of material she had been trying to source for months. Beneath the bolt a card. 3 words, handwritten in a script that was deliberate and careful, belonging to someone who did not write casually. For what's next? Yemi held the card for a long time. She thought about the nature of the city she lived in. Its hunger, its warmth, its willingness to hold contradictions without resolving them. A city that was ancient and modern at once, that could be brutal and tender in the same breath, that had taken a Nigerian girl and made her one of its own without asking her to become anyone other than who she was. She thought about the man who had knelt in the rain beside her without introduction or explanation, who had spoken 4 words with the certainty of someone already in motion, who had framed her work on his wall before he ever spoke to her, and had never intended her to see it, which meant it had been for him. She thought about the way he had said, "Not quite." She set the card down on her design table. She ran her hand across the indigo silk. It was extraordinary, the kind of material that demanded to be made into something worthy of it, that refused to be wasted on anything ordinary. She picked up her phone. She did not have his number. She had not asked for it and he had not offered it. But Shin had written a number on a small piece of paper when Yemi left, and had said only, "In case you need anything." Yemi dialed. It rang twice. "Yemi," he said, and the way he said her name, not surprised, not performed, simply present, as if he had been waiting with the patience of someone who had decided and was content to wait, told her everything she needed to know about what kind of man he was and what kind of decision she was making. "I got the fabric," she said. "Good," he said. A pause. "I want to make you something," she said. "With it. If you will let me." Another pause. Longer this time. The kind of silence in which 2 people on either end of a line understand that the conversation they are having is not about fabric at all, has never been about fabric, and has perhaps been happening since a woman stood in the rain on the corner of Dongseong-no-gil and laughed at herself, and a man counted 11 seconds without meaning to. "I will let you," he said. Outside, Daegu moved through its evening. The neon signs of Dongseongno flickered on. The galbi smoke rose from the street grills. Jazz drifted from a bar on the upper floor of a building that had stood since before anyone now living was born. Motorcycles and luxury cars. Children running. Men in suits moving through a city that was always becoming. Inside the studio, Yemi spread the indigo silk across the table and reached for her pencil and began.